before we start, we may better to have a more still. If you're confident. See you. Thank you for coming today. Turn your phone off. Okay. It's okay. The noise and things like that is fine. It's part of the. I think that's part of the people coming in.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe we thought to make it better. Yeah, she was saying that's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us here today and online. Let me introduce you to ARAHA's press conference, focusing very much on the drought crisis that is currently in the Horn of Africa. Now I will introduce Mohamed Idris, our Executive Director, to speak to you about the situation and give you some notes on what's happening.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohamed Idris. I'm the Executive Director of ARAHA, the American Relief Agency for the Horn of Africa. Let me spell my name. That is Mohamed, last name Idris, Idris. First, I would like to welcome you and thank you for coming to our press conference today. The reason we decided to hold this press conference is because the humanitarian situation in the Horn of Africa has reached an alarming stage. One of the lessons we learned from 2011 famine, that famine claimed about 260,000 people in Somalia alone. One of the lessons we learned from it, that the famine was predicted earlier, but timely action to prevent the onset famine was not taken. The result was large-scale mortality and large-scale displacement. This year, the Famine Early Warning System Network issued an alert of risk of famine, stage 5. The food insecurity have 5 stages. Number 5 is basically the famine. And now, in some part of the region, we are in stage 4, before stage 5 come. So that's why they are sending these alert. But let me take you to the condition in the ground. We came recently from a trip to the Horn of Africa. Myself and our program director, Greene, who's going to speak to you also again after me, and a program coordinator from Kenya. We went in a tour to our field offices in the region. So we visited Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, and Ethiopia. During the visit, we really witnessed a devastated population due to the prolonged severe drought in the region. 4 consecutive seasons have now failed since late 2020. And this is a climatic event not seen in the last 40 years. As a result of that, over 30 million people on the brink of famine in Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Sudan. Over 7 million livestock have already died, and the remaining are below the average, very weak. And remember, these are the sources of food and the sources of income for nomadic people, which consider like the majority of the people in the Horn of Africa. But it's not only the drought that causing this. There are certain external factors that exaggerated the impact of the drought. So macroeconomic challenges worsened by domestic cereal shortages and by global food and fuel supply shocks have led to exceptional high food prices across most of the region. Especially the war on Ukraine has an impact on the region because, and actually it worsened the situation because most of the countries in the Horn of Africa used to import their wheat and flour from Russia and Ukraine. You can imagine a country like Somalia used to import 92% of its wheat from those two countries. Let me give you some specific examples of high prices, of how high prices, food commodities, went. A jar of cooking oil that once cost $16 is now selling for $45 in the market of Mogadishu. In Sudan, cereals prices have reached 390 to 425% about above the 5 years average. Just to put things in perspective, here in the U.S. we know it's affecting even inflation, high inflation, and prices going up is affecting us. But it is 10, 20, 60, 70%? And imagine those people who may not have steady income, who only live on livestock and farming, which both of them rely on water and rain, and now it's collapsing. Imagine when they experience 300 to 400 prices increase for basic food. Additionally, all of these countries are still recovering from the devastating effect of COVID-19. But let me also give you some specific statistics and data about maybe specific countries that we are serving. We serve Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya. So if we talk about Somalia, nearly 50% of the population, about 7 million, are estimated to be affected by the drought. In Somaliland alone, there are 1.5 million people in need of emergency assistance right now. Drought caused displacement. In Somalia, just from this drought, 805,000 people have been newly displaced due to drought. Displaced population in Somalia predominantly reside in informal settlement located in Mogadishu, Baidawa, North Galkayo, Kismayo, Beledweyne, Bosaso, and Bor'o in Somaliland. IDPs, which is internally displaced people, from rural areas in South Somalia already started coming to the capital of Mogadishu seeking for help. Areas that most affected in Somalia are the south and also in Somaliland region. The government of Somalia declared a state of emergency as drought worsened. In Kenya, the number of people in need for assistance has increased from 3.5 million in May to 4.1 million in June 2022. Areas affected the most in Kenya are northern part of Kenya, eastern Kenya, and namely just to name some of the counties there, Laikipia, Mandera, Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo, and Samburu. All these counties are in alarm drought phase. The conflict between some tribes in Marsabit County due to the scarcity of grazing area is a good example, because this drought really is causing problem. Those nomad people have to move from a place where there is no grazing to a place where they can feed their livestock, but that may create conflict with other people and other communities. The president of Kenya declared drought as a national disaster. This is just as an example of how serious even the local governments are taking this. If we come to Ethiopia, more than 7.2 million people in need of food assistance, according to the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. Areas that are affected the most in Ethiopia are the northern part, which is Tigray. That's also partially because of the recent conflict and war in that part, but also the southern part and the eastern and the southeastern part of Ethiopia have been affected. Part of the Oromia region and part of the Somali region. In addition to the conflict area in the Afar and the Amhara region. During our visit, this is just in Ethiopia, during our visit, we noticed more than normal number of children coming from the rural area, sleeping in the street of Addis Ababa during our visit. These are just all signs of a looming famine. If we come to Sudan, our last country here, according to OCHA, 11.7 million people are estimated to be facing acute food insecurity. Area most affected the most are much of Darfur area, Eastern Sudan, and the Khartoum state itself. One of the things we notice also in Sudan that crimes increased significantly. Of course, part of it is due to the political instability, but the impact of severe drought and skyrocketing prices of food commodities have contributed to this. Now, when we talk about famine and severe drought, the segment of population that are affected the most is the children. In 2011, we lost half of the 260,000 people. They were all children under the age of 5. And the reason, because children are most vulnerable and most affected by this, especially in rural areas, because milk and meat are the essential part of their diet. And if you have a 7 million livestock diet so far, and the rest are weak or even going far away from the community, that means children are not benefiting from these livestock. And that, of course, leads to severe malnutrition, leading to death of many children. We cannot let history repeat itself. So let's move to what ARAHA is doing right now. We launched a campaign to raise awareness about the situation. Our organization mobilized and still mobilizing its field offices and teams on the ground to distribute water and food. However, the needs in the ground are beyond our resources. So what can you do as a person, as a regular person? We urge people to go to our website at araha.org, that's ARAHA.org, just to learn more about what is going on in the region and to contribute whatever you can. Our development director, Hope Hennessey, will come later to explain maybe more about what you can do. I mentioned a lot of statistics and a lot of data. And sometimes statistics and data and numbers, huge numbers like 30 million, it make us numb. We may not know the impact on people. But these are real people, real mothers, real children that have been affected. And let me share with you a story that happened in last famine, and I hope it doesn't happen again. But this is a story that stuck in my mind from last famine. A mother who has to leave her village in Somalia and crossed the border to Kenya, as many people did at that time. She had 3 children. She is in the road, and 2 of them were sick, so she was carrying them. The other one was walking. Over time, even the 3rd one becomes sick, because the journey is take days. And literally, she reached a point where she had to choose, because she cannot carry 3 of them. She literally has to make that choice and that decision to put one of them and to leave one of them so that she can save 2 of them at least. Otherwise, all of them will die. And she had to leave one of them who thought maybe will not make it under a tree. And she continued until a camp, a nearby camp. She reached safely to the camp with a heart broken. Luckily, some villagers found the child under the tree and were able to save that child. And because they know this route, a lot of refugees, a lot of displaced people were taking, they assumed this family will be in the refugee camps. So they took them there. And she was reunited with her child. But just imagine a mother to make that decision, that life and death decision. So this is really what we are talking about, and we hope we don't have to reach that situation. So let us save families, let us save lives before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you to Mohamed Idris, our Executive Director, for his notes. Next up, we'll be hearing from our Program Director, Jordan Greene.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Ashley. My name is Jordan Greene. I'm the Program Director of ARAHA. I can spell my name. It's Jordan, last name Greene. I want to build off what Mohamed explained and take a couple of minutes to discuss the drought impact we witnessed firsthand during our trip to the Horn of Africa. In May and June of this year, Mohamed and I spent 3 weeks visiting our field offices in the Horn. The purpose of this trip was to meet with field staff, hear their concerns and experiences, gauge the situation on the ground, visit project sites, and interact with the beneficiaries of those said projects. And as Mohamed discussed, our visit travel consisted of Kenya, Somaliland, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Sudan. During this trip, we identified recurring themes throughout our visit, but I want to reiterate again what Mohamed said, and first and foremost, the drought is continuously evolving and has been doing so for some time. We expect and anticipate the drought to worsen in the coming months. The first recurring theme is that there's a clear lack of access to food and water, as Mohamed mentioned. Even under non-drought circumstances, a family's access to these essentials can be incredibly challenging. But of course, now with the drought, the ability to provide food and water is legitimately debilitating for many families. Families in the rural areas, particularly the women and children, have to travel great distances by foot in order to gain access to fresh water, whether from a riverbed or a water well. Each person requires multiple liters of water a day, as we know. The handheld water containers used to and from these locations only provide sustenance for a short period of time, so it's very difficult. The access to food nourishment is just as bad as well. We witnessed firsthand how families are minimizing the standard serving portions of food such as rice, cooking oil, and flour in order to ration their allocations for a longer period of time. The second theme we identified is the limited availability of livestock and the death of livestock as well. This is very critical. For many communities, particularly in the rural areas, livestock consisting of goats, cows, and sheep are the sole catalyst in which to make ends meet. They are generally either sold for immediate financial stability or the first casualties whenever a drought or potential famine is coming. The very nature of the drought interrupts these communities' ability to accumulate any semblance of wealth for the future. We spoke with many families who have found themselves in this particular situation. The third theme identified is that there's greater movement of nomadic and non-nomadic communities in the area. We've seen a rise in the amount of internally displaced people and refugees due to the drought. with little food, water, and livestock. Many families are forced from their homes and forced to go to unfamiliar, uncertain locations. These communities are in dire need of stability. The fourth and final theme we identified during our trip is how the drought has affected a children's education, and this is very critical as well. We spoke with families who detailed how they've been forced to take some or all of their children out of school in order to work at home due to the drought. We understand the importance and opportunity an education provides a child not only in the short term but also in the long term. This ongoing drought has acutely caused a plethora of children to lose out on the basic right of an education. In meeting with these communities and through extensive dialogue with our field staff, we were able to come to these central conclusions. But also on the flip side, we were able to see the positive impact our projects and our programs have had. We've noticed positive effects in our school lunch programs, food basket distributions, water trucking distributions, and the food and medical supply shipments we've been sending in coordination with our organizational partners. ARAHA has implemented multiple school lunch programs in countries in which we operate. These programs provide students a daily meal during their school hours in situations where they might not otherwise have access to food or even water. These programs are saving lives while simultaneously allowing the children to continue their education, and that's very, very important. We've implemented quite a few projects involving the distribution of food baskets to selected beneficiaries in dire need areas. Additionally, we utilize a water trucking mechanism to distribute liters of water to families as well. Through our organizational partners, we've been able to consistently send food and medical supply shipments to the Horn too. The food item consists of a nutritious Mannapack rice, which includes rice, soy protein, and micronutrients. We found that the distribution of these containers to schools and other local communities has been incredibly beneficial. And lastly, the medical supply containers we send are primarily distributed to local clinics and hospitals in the area, and these have had a very far-reaching impact, even independent of the drought situation going on. So over these next months, we're hopeful to increase our support in the region through the coordination of our hardworking field staff, organizational partners, and donors. It's paramount that we continue to do as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, for your notes there. Next up, we will be hearing from our philanthropy director, Hope Hennessey. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Hope Hennessey. I'm the Director of Development here at ARAHA. I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today. The world is in a tough place right now. There are so many conflicts and different causes to draw your attention. It's overwhelming, and I wish we had good news to share with you today. But we cannot let the world forget this region, because the families battling this drought have nowhere else to turn for resources. These people are facing catastrophic food insecurity. So we're asking you to join us today to help vulnerable people who need our support. As individuals, it often feels like there's nothing we can do to make an impact when it comes to deadly natural disasters. We ask ourselves, what possible difference could I make? But it's not about completely solving every aspect of this disaster. It's about the clean, safe water that we can provide to a community through our water trucking practices. It's about the hungry family of 4 who will be able to feed their malnourished children once ARAHA is able to distribute food baskets. It's about saving one life at a time, and you can be a part of that. And that person might be on the other side of the world from you. They might never get a chance to shake your hand, but you will make an impact. So visit our website, araha.org, that's ARAHA.org, to learn how you can be an advocate for drought relief. We need your help. We need to spread awareness in your community before it's too late. Follow us on your favorite social media platform. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at ARAHA Relief. That's ARAHARELIEF. All it takes is one click of a button while you scroll throughout the day. If you're able, share our stories with your friends and family. The more connections we can make, the more powerful our mission will become, and the world will take notice. We will show people how vital these relief efforts are. We will continue to share the impact we are making, and every day, our work will save a life. ARAHA has been combating natural disasters in the Horn of Africa for over 20 years. Our methodology of disaster management is effective, and we will see positive results. We've seen the deadly consequences of recent drought with little to no combative measures taken. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. So thank you for listening today and engaging in these humanitarian relief efforts. And together, we will defeat this drought. Thank you.
A great thank you to Hope, our Development Director. At this time, if anyone has any questions, either online or here in person, please do let me know. Yes, sir.
What type of relief package ARAHA is providing the families?
Great. So the question was, what relief packages is ARAHA providing for those in the Horn? And for that, I will invite our Program Director, Jordan, up.
Thank you for the question. That's a good question. So the package itself, it contains rice, cooking oil, milk powder, and essentially 10 barrels of water. And 10 barrels of water is enough to feed a family for roughly a month. That's kind of our loose estimate. The cost itself is about $125, and that can also be found on our website as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. I believe I saw another question. Yes.
Could you maybe walk us through the journey of a family impacted by the drought?
Yes. So for describing that journey, I believe our Executive Director, Mohamed Idris, would give you the best answer there.
So thank you for the question. So when the drought hit the region, people are in their villages. They're farmers or they are pastoralists taking care of their livestock. And that's how they rely on. This is their livelihood. They rely on these animals or they rely on the harvest of their farming. And when the rain stops, you can imagine basically the agriculture and the livestock will be basically will not help them. So what happened is those families, it will affect first of all the livestock, and the livestock get weaker, and then after a while it may die. So now they don't have anything, and they have to either get displaced within the country, or they cross the border to another country. And that is something that's what we are trying to prevent, because once a person moves from their roots, from their villages, the cost of helping them actually even triple. Because when they are in their villages, when they are in their small town, all what they need is like bringing them some food and maybe some water until they cross this period of time, maybe until the next rain. But if they couldn't do that, they have to move. And when they move and cross the border to another country, now the cost become it's not only about food and water, but it become now more about even shelter, about health, about livelihood, about protection. So the cost become even triple. So and not only this, even the style of living will change, because refugees, not all refugees are coming back. Actually, majority of the refugees are not coming back to their home. And that is the sad reality. We think these refugee camps will be, for short term, and we are saving lives for short term. But now we have refugee camps that 60 years old, 70 years old, 2 generations raised and born in these camps. So let us prevent this from happening. Let us, the best way and the best method to help a refugee, not to make them a refugee in the first place. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions today? Yes.
Due to the seriousness of drought in the region, is there any other organization like ARAHA who respond aggressively in the region? How it looks like? The seriousness of drought is it's very sad. But what other aggressiveness response is going on? Do you know anything? Beside ARAHA.
So in terms of other organizations that might be helping in the Horn,
Cooperate together with ARAHA. Is that anything? Because
yeah, we're working together
sounds very
with
serious.
ARAHA. Sure. I will once again invite Mohamed Idris to answer that question for you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, the scale of the problem is big, as you may know, and we are not going to do it alone. And there are many organizations that are trying to help. But the problem people faced last time, and this is the reality every time, and unfortunately it happened, is that people respond late. And by the time you see the images in the media with hundreds of people dying, at that time, even if you intervene, it will be too late. That's why we are raising this awareness. We are making this press conference so that we really tell people this is the time now to intervene before it is too late. One of the things, and during the last famine, two large organizations issued a study, and that study was called, or a statement, or a report called "The Dangerous Delay." The dangerous delay, I believe, was Oxfam and Save the Children. And one of the things they said is that people, although the famine was predicted several months before the famine happened, but people didn't take action. And one of the things, and I hope the media this time get it right, is that media is what moves people. Media is what make me as a regular person sitting in my home to go and act and donate, because they bring it to my face. Now the problem with media is they don't bring these things unless it's worth telling, and let it become a story, which means basically hundreds of people dying. At that time it becomes a story, unfortunately. That's the reality of our world today. But at that time it will be too late, because even at that time where we found out from previous experience that even children who reach refugee camps and get the help still die there because it was just too late to intervene. So there are organizations who are working, but again, these organizations cannot mobilize their resources unless there are donations, unless there is attention from the public, and that's what we are trying to do. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions here today? Yes.
From the past drought until now, is there any change happened? Is there anything we learned from that? What kind of change did we do so far? And I know ARAHA did the
The sand dam project?
Sandam project. What kind of impact did it for in terms of drought? That what kind of change we did so far?
I'll have Mohamed back up for that one.
Thank you. So there are many things we learned. The first thing we learned is the importance of early intervention. So you don't want to be late. This is one of the reasons we are making this press conference, so that we can tell people, hey, we don't want the history to repeat itself. But other things also is that the drought phenomena is not a one-time phenomena. It's a recurring phenomena. And because of that, we need to have a comprehensive approach to make people more resilient so that they can weather and mitigate the challenges of drought. Because we cannot stop the drought. Actually, all prediction says that the Horn of Africa is going to be hotter, is going to be more dry, is going to be expected to have more heat, and the impact of climate change is going to be seen in Africa in general more than any area, and specifically in the Horn of Africa, because the equator passed through the Horn of Africa, and that's why it's going to be hotter and drier. So the question is how we can, in an early stage, we can help the people in the region to be more resilient so that they can they can weather these drought phenomena without losing lives, without devastation. In other parts of the world, there are areas where people experience drought, but we don't see the scale of large mortality and large displacement as it happened in the Horn of Africa. So that is one of the things we are trying to bring some different projects, long-lasting projects, like the sand dam you mentioned, helping, like the school lunch program, even that's part of it, is how we can sustain this, and education, boreholes, building boreholes and things like that. So these are just some of the major, but right now, because the famine is almost looming, we have to basically focus on water and food, as Jordan mentioned. Thank you. I hope that answered it.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us today here in person and virtually. If you would like to speak to any of our speakers today, please do reach out to me directly via email at ashley@araha.org. That's ASHLEY@araha.org. Or you can reach us through the telephone at 763-270-5351. Thank you for your time today, and I hope we make an impact together. Thank you.
Thank you.